Good morning. Let's start with the new chapter, Quest for a Theory of Everything. Now this chapter comes under the unit Glimpses of Greatness, Unit 1 from English textbook 4+1. Next slide is about Kitty Gale Ferguson. Here you have an image of Kitty Gale Ferguson with Stephen Hawking. To say about Kitty Gale, she is a science writer, lecturer, and a former professional musician. She has authored numerous science books, including books on biological facts. Her works are organized for the degree of detail and accuracy, and she is known for her ability to explain very complicated scientific concepts. So as said earlier, she is a science writer and lecturer, and that has helped her to create works that would give a detailed account of what she is trying to explain in her work. The difficult concepts in science are made very clear to the readers with her kind of writing. Next, you have an introduction to the chapter. This chapter centers around the life of the greatest scientist, Stephen Hawking, who, despite the physical challenges, confronts life with the spirit of optimism, inquisitiveness, determination, and focus, and takes the best foot forward. Now, what does this slide say? The chapter completely revolves around the life of the greatest scientist, Stephen Hawking, who, in spite of the physical challenges, faces life with spirit of positivity. That is what is meant by optimism. Inquisitiveness. Inquisitiveness means the curiosity one imbibes when trying to find something new. Determination and focus, and takes the best foot forward. Best foot forward means you take a great effort and hard work to achieve success. Now, the next slide is on Stephen Hawking. The same slide gives a glimpse on an introductory part of the chapter. The 38-year-old Lacacian professor of mathematics and physicist Stephen Hawking, in an inaugural lecture on Is the End in Sight of Theoretical Physics, shocked the listeners or startled the listeners by declaring or stating that there is an end for theoretical physics. So you can get to know that Stephen Hawking, when addressing the gathering, was 38-year-old, successful professor. In fact, he got the designation Lacacian professor for his contribution in the field of mathematics. So the 38-year-old Lacacian professor of mathematics and physicist, Stephen Hawking, in an inaugural lecture, addressed, is the end in sight for theoretical physics? There is an end for theoretical physics. And he startled or shocked the listeners by declaring that there is, of course, an end for theoretical physics. Next, you have several slides that gives mind map for better understanding of the chapter. You can better understand the chapter by reading the mind map based on the numbers given. Let's start. Stephen Hawking invites audience to join him in a sensational escape through time and space to find the holy grail of science, the theory that explains the universe and everything happens in it. So what did Stephen Hawking do? He invited audience to join him in a sensational escape through time and space to find the holy essence of science, the theory that particularly explains the universe and everything that happens in universe. Stephen Hawking was born on 8 January 1942 in Oxford to Frank and Isabel Hawking, and both the parents planned to send him to Westminster Public School and later joined him at Alvin School as he fell ill at the time of scholarship. Now here you find a slide that gives a glimpse of Stephen Hawking's family. On the left you have Frank Hawking, on the right you have Isabel Hawking. At the age of 8, Stephen aspired to become a scientist. His father encouraged him to become a doctor, but Hawking found biology not so accurate with facts. So he wanted to take up a subject that would give him insight into accurate facts and get him into the root of things. So at the age of 8, Stephen aspired to become a scientist. His father really wanted him to become a doctor. But Hawking was not interested in biology. For him, biology was not so accurate with facts. He thought that what excites him the most with facts that are genuine is physics. And he understood the basic fact that he could get to know physics very well and he could get into the root of things when it comes to physics. He was just an ordinary student who was slow in learning to read. Teachers were rather disappointed with his poor handwriting. And at 14, Stephen knew that he would pursue mathematics and physics, but his father refused to take the mathematics as it offered only a teaching career, as there was no possibility for further growth. So Stephen's father was particular about Stephen because he really understood the potential of the child. So he doesn't want the child to be just a teacher, but he should acquire a position in career where he is successful. So at 14, Stephen knew that he would pursue mathematics and physics, but his father refused to take mathematics because it would only offer Stephen a teaching career where there would not be any further growth in him. He asked him to get enrolled in Oxford for the entrance by seriously focusing on physics, chemistry, and a little mathematics. So what did the father ask Stephen to do? Stephen's father asked Stephen to get enrolled or get admitted in Oxford for the entrance, for which Stephen will have to focus completely on physics, chemistry, and a little mathematics. And what happened finally? Stephen did well in physics and the interview was brilliantly accepted in Oxford. At 17, Stephen joined Oxford to study natural science and got specialized in physics. However, 1.5 years he felt lonely and bored. But in the middle of the second year, he began enjoying Oxford. Like any other ordinary student, the initial years in Oxford was not so exciting for him. It was rather boring. But after 1.5 years, in the middle of the second year, he began to enjoy Oxford. Meanwhile, he became a popular, lively, buoyant, and adaptable. He wore long hair, became famous for his wit, and liked classical music and science fiction, and participated in sports. So what is said further? Stephen, he became very popular, he became famous, he was lively and buoyant. Buoyant means cheerful and adaptable. He had long hairs and he became famous for his wit. And he liked classical music and science fiction, and he participated even in sports. So what is here meant by wit or being witty? A person who is witty is able to make remarkable comments based on an action. So when you say somebody is witty, you say somebody is witty when someone is able to invent remarks quickly that are humorous. So he was witty, he liked classical music and science fiction, and he in fact participated in sports. So these all traits made him unique as a person. At the end of the third year, Stephen Hawking was confused. He selected theoretical physics as his specialty and applied for PhD at Cambridge. Cambridge was willing to accept him on one condition, that Stephen Hawking should get first in Oxford. So if only Stephen gets first in Oxford, he would get admitted in Cambridge. Even though Stephen was confident to get through successfully, as days approached, he ended up disastrously on a borderline between a first and second. With a borderline result, the examiners call him for an interview, wherein he tells them that if he gets first, he will join Cambridge, and if second, he will remain in Oxford. Therefore, he expects them to give him first. Eventually, he joined Cambridge. So, if only Oxford provides Stephen with a first rank, he could only join Cambridge. But however, he was in a borderline between the first and second, and when he finally joined or be there for the interview in front of the panel, he just had a conversation with him. What did he really say? He said that if he gets first, he would definitely join Cambridge, and if second, he would have to continue in Oxford. Therefore, he expects Oxford to give him first so that he could finally join Cambridge. His first year at Cambridge was worse than Oxford. His lack of in-depth knowledge in mathematics caught up with him, and he found general relativity extremely tough. So general relativity was a difficult subject for him, and his lack of in-depth knowledge in mathematics really affected him in performing well. The third year became more disastrous as Hawking started getting clumsy due to physical illness. He had collapsed once or twice for no proper reason, and during autumn, he had trouble in tying shoes and had difficulty in talking. So, he couldn't perform well due to his physical illness. Alongside, he was seriously affected as he couldn't perform well in his studies due to his lack of knowledge in mathematics and general relativity. However, he didn't give up. He pursued with hard work and determination. In 1963, he was contracted with a rare disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, for which there was no cure. It caused the complete disintegration of the nerve cell in the spinal cord and in the brain in the initial stage. He went into a severe state of depression, and he didn't know what he ought to do or what his future would be like. So what happened in the year 1963? The man was contracted with a rare disease called amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. For there was no cure, and it caused serious damage to the nerve cells in the spinal cord and the brain. In the beginning stage, he went into a state of depression, and he didn't know what he'd have to do with his life and what he will probably do with his future. He was bored with his life before the diagnosis of the disease, but shortly after the diagnosis, he dreamt he was going to be killed. He decided that there were many worthwhile things that he had to do before it was delayed. He thought of sacrificing his life for others as it might do some good for mankind. So what was really happening with Stephen Hawking? Stephen Hawking was bored with his life before the diagnosis of the disease. But immediately after the diagnosis, he dreamt he shouldn't live such a worthless life. Anyway, he was going to be killed or he is going to die. He decided that there were many worthwhile things he had to do as a human being before the death comes and calls him to his grave. He thought of sacrificing his life for others as it might do some good for the mankind eventually. So he invested most of the time being a successful physicist and scientist.